In today's episode of the Grief Files, I'm talking with Brianda Cisneros, a young mother of three grieving the death of her newborn son. Together, we're going to explore anticipatory grief, the experience of denial, and how the death of a child forever changes the landscape of life as we once knew it. Brianda, thank you for being here today.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate it. First of all, tell us how recently was the loss of your son?
He passed away in November, so just
A
two
few
months
months.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So very, very fresh. Well, I'm going to kind of have you take us through the story of Sammy in your own words, kind of telling it to us with the details that feel relevant for you. But before we get into that, I want to ask you to just take a moment and kind of reflect on your grieving experience so far. One of the goals of the show is for us to have the opportunity to talk about grief on a granular level. Most of the time when we're talking about it, we're kind of talking about the big arc of the story with some distance. And so I want you to kind of call to mind somewhere in this grieving experience, maybe it was even before Sammy passed, where just take a minute and think about kind of where you were. And I want to have you kind of paint the picture for us of a single moment in time. You can pick the moment and kind of paint the picture for us of where are you in time, what time of day is it, who's around, and then take us into your interior experience of what were you thinking and feeling. Give us a moment in your experience of grief, because I think this is something that's missing for our grief narratives, is what does it actually feel like to be in it? And as you and I both know, it feels lots of kinds of ways, but
Yeah.
take the time and just think about a moment that's coming up now that you could share with us.
Like of his passing, like when he passed.
It could be that, it could be, prior when you knew that something was happening, or it could have been a moment that happened after. Like for myself, for instance, there was a moment probably a few days after my daughter passed away, and I was sitting in the backyard, and there's these really tall pine trees, like these 60-foot tall pine trees, and it was probably late morning, and the sun was kind of filtering through the trees. And I had this really strange, unexpected moment where for just a few moments, I felt peaceful and like this very intense kind of gratitude. It was almost like joy. Like I felt connected to her and connected to what had happened in life. It was a really strange experience that I had not had before, where for a moment, I kind of lost the boundaries of myself. Um, and that was a piece of the grieving experience that I never expected, right? I didn't know that there would be
Yeah.
elements of like joy or connection. And it was about, the experience of getting to be her mom,
Yeah.
but there were other experiences that were, raw to the point of unbearable as well. Like there's lots of different ways it felt, and there's no right or wrong answer here. And feel free to take the time to kind of notice like what memory wants to come out right now for you to talk about it at a level of intimacy and detail. You can take your time and you can talk about the details about it. This is a space for that.
Okay. I think the moment I'm thinking of is like when he passed. Um, it was it was just a Saturday. It was November 15th, and we had just gone to my nephew's birthday party. He had just turned 3, and I took Sammy, and he was doing great all day. Sammy had medical complications, but he was having a pretty good day so far. He was prone to seizures, and just recently, before then, he was having trouble processing his food. He would spit up a lot, and so that was just kind of scary. But this day he wasn't he hadn't had any seizures that day, and he was digesting his food really well. And we went to the party, and my mom got to hold him, and my aunt got to hold him, and honestly, all of my sisters, so all of his aunts, got to hold him and see him, and his cousins. I mean, he was asleep for most of the day, but his medication made him really sleepy, so I
Mhm.
didn't think too much of it. And so everybody got to see him, and it was just a normal day. And we'd come home, and we were all tired. And my husband, he had planned just a little father-son activity for my older son, Leo. And so he had taken my son to go see like it was some sort of race car show. I don't know, something like that. And
Yeah.
so my son was excited. And so he was gone. It was just me and Sammy and my daughter Ellie. And I was tired. And I just put a movie on. And my daughter Ellie, she was just playing with her tablet. And I was just holding Sammy. And I noticed, he was like laying on my chest, and then I noticed that a little bit of milk just started to trickle out of his mouth, and I didn't think too much of it. I thought he was just, spitting up as babies do, so I didn't think too much of it. He wasn't throwing up like he did other days, when he wasn't digesting his food right. But I noticed that yes, that he kind of breathed out
Mm.
as he released the milk, but I didn't like, and I was angry with myself for so long because I didn't realize what it meant, because I didn't realize in the moment that he didn't breathe back in. And so I
Mm.
actually set him down because it was my daughter's bedtime, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put her to bed really quickly, and then I'll come back and I'll grab Sammy and I'll get him ready for bed, and then I'll prepare his next feeding, like on the feeding tube. And so I go and I put my daughter to bed, and she went to sleep really quick. She was
Mhm.
really tired from playing all day. And I go back to grab Sammy, and I realize he's really cold.
Mm.
Now he had issues regulating his body temperature, and so I thought it was just that. I thought he was just cold, and so I was like, okay, I'll snuggle with him for a while before bed. But when I laid him down on the bed to start changing him and
Let's see.
yeah. Oh, there it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we are. We're back.
Sorry,
That's
technical
okay.
difficulties.
That's okay. We're back. We can hear you and see you again.
Okay, go over there, guys. Go. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. But
The
yes,
last thing I
so
heard you say is you were setting him down on the bed to change him.
yes, I was setting him on the bed to change him, and so he had had a meal a little bit before I laid him on my chest, and so a little bit of milk trickled out while he was on my chest. But when I laid him down, it was like all of the milk just started like coming out of his mouth, but he wasn't spitting up, so he wasn't reacting, and that's when I knew something was wrong, because it
Mhm.
reminded me of a few like many years ago. My sister had a pet kitten, a pet kitty, and we witnessed her kitty pass away. And when she did, I remember that everything that the kitten had eaten started just coming out of it, and at the same time, it was also like it was peeing and pooping, and it
Mhm.
reminded me of that. And that's when I really realized something was wrong. And so then I picked up Sammy, and I was like, not shaking him, but I was like, Sammy, Sammy, are you okay? Like trying to like bend him over and pat him on his
Mhm.
back. I was like, well, maybe he needs help, and there was no reaction. He wasn't coughing. He didn't move at all. Like his face, like his eyes were still closed, but his mouth was just like hanging open, and the milk was just coming out of him. And I got really scared because then I noticed that his skin was also really pale. And I remember I turned the light on, and I really looked at him, and yeah, I could tell that he wasn't there anymore. And I remember grabbing a stethoscope because we had one at home just to monitor him. Um, and I couldn't find his heartbeat. And I remember I started panicking, and I called my husband right away. And I was like, babe, there's something wrong with Sammy. I don't know. Like, I mean, he looks really different. I'm like, I think he, he might be gone. And my husband, he was like, okay. He's like, what should we do? Should we take him to the hospital? But we had discussed
There we go.
sorry.
We're
Yeah,
back.
sorry.
We're back.
The
That's
phone
okay.
the phone calls keep coming in.
That's okay.
But yes, I remember calling my husband, and but before Sammy was born, I remember that we had discussed, that we didn't want Sammy to end up on life support. We didn't want him
Mm,
staying on this earth, you know, via machines. We didn't want a machine breathing for him. We didn't want him on a trach. We didn't want him we didn't want him to be kept on earth, by our own will. And so, like, I told my husband, I was like, no, no, like, if he really is gone, I'm like, I would rather it be here at home. And so my husband he rushed home as quickly as possible, and Sammy was on hospice. And so the next call was to the hospice nurse. And they said they were 45 minutes out. Um, it was the closest nurse he could get there, 45 minutes.
wow.
And my next call was to our pastor, and she rushed over as quickly as possible,
Mhm.
and she arrived like just shortly after my husband got home. And it was a very surreal moment because I just remember praying and praying, like asking God, I'm like, please, please, Lord, please, no, like, don't let this be real, please don't let this be real. But once my pastor got there and she started praying with us, she just told us, she was like, guys, like, there's so much peace in this room right now. She's like, she was telling us, she was like, I truly feel that Sammy is at peace. He's with the Lord now. And so, like, she was kind of trying to get me to a place to let go. But as a mom, like, I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop. I wanted us to keep praying. I wanted us to keep trying something. But it was like my pastor was the one who like finally gave me permission to stop. She was like, "No, Brianda, like, I think, I think the Lord just wants us to let him go." And then finally, the hospice nurse got there, and he declared that yes, that he had already passed. But it was just that moment of, I don't know, finally having to accept that he really was gone, and just trying to honor everything that we had already talked about. That to be um we didn't want him to be kept alive by machines, and just having to accept that this was really it, that he was gone. And it was hard because my son was there too, my 7-year-old. He had come
Mm,
back with his dad, and you could just see he was just watching us, and he wasn't reacting.
mm,
And then it was when the hospice nurse finally declared that Sammy was gone. That's when my son finally reacted, and
Mm,
he just started crying, and we just held him, and we just all cried as a family for my
wow.
little boy. But what I really loved is that the hospice people, um, my pastor, she worked with them to kind of make arrangements for like what funeral home we were gonna work with, and she's the one who chose South Bixby
Mhm,
funeral service. But so while we were waiting for the curator or the person, to come and get
mhm.
his body, we got to have just a few more moments with him, and so I I I had to make that special, and so we took little prints of his little hands and
Yeah.
feet, and I remember Sammy's hair was getting so long,
Oh,
and so we cut like a little bit of his hair. And we washed it too because all the milk had spilled out,
yeah,
like it had gotten into his hair, and so it was all crusty and kind of yucky. And so we got to wash his hair, and we changed him into some different PJs so he wasn't wet.
yeah.
And it was like that moment was so special. I mean, it was hard to touch him because he was so cold and he was already just starting to stiffen a little bit,
Mhm.
but it just felt so special that we got to do the last few moments for him. I still got to take care of him and wash his hair and change his clothes one more time.
Yeah,
And I will forever appreciate that I had that. And then like it even gave us just a few like moments just to just to be with his body and before they took him or did anything to him. I don't know, it was just so special. Like it was very hard, but it was special. And I mean now, you know, I always say that I have a Sammy-sized hole in my heart.
yes.
But at the same time, I also have like peace, like you were saying, Roxy,
Yeah,
because I saw him. I'm telling you, like all of the medical complications that Sammy had,
yeah,
and just watching my little baby have seizures, and there was nothing I could do to
yeah.
stop it. I was so hard. And then he was hospitalized twice in his little life. He only lived to be 4 months old,
Okay.
but he was hospitalized twice. And it was just so hard seeing him connected to all those tubes, because each time we went to the hospital, he was in the PICU, and so they had all these monitors on him, and he was fed via a G tube, and
Yeah,
so he had to be hooked up to be fed and whatnot, and
yeah.
it was just so hard to see our like my little tiny baby. Like he was only at birth he was only 5 pounds. He was
Oh,
only 5 pounds 1 ounce, and he only grew to be about 7 pounds 12 ounces was
yeah,
his final weight. And so
yeah.
he was just a little baby.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because my daughter, my 2-year-old, she had Barbie like little baby dolls that were bigger than him, and
Oh, so sweet.
yeah,
And, it's interesting that you said what you did as far as just wanting to have that time with Sammy's body. I remember this very much, with my daughter as well. We were really fortunate. She passed away in the hospital, and I was able to hold her for several days, and we did too. We did the washing and the dressing, and because so much of your relationship to your infant child, it's so embodied, right? It's like holding them
yeah,
against your chest, and, um, I feel like as mothers especially, right, to part with the body,
yeah.
your child, there's that moment of separation. How was that moment for you when someone came to take him away?
Oh man, it was so hard when they finally came to take him away. But what I appreciate is that I don't know their official name, but the person who came for his body, he was so kind. He told me that he lives at the funeral home, and so he reassured me that Sammy would not be alone. He said that he would be with Sammy and he would take great care of him. And then as he did take his little body, I saw him place Sammy's body in the front seat of the car, so
Mm,
I knew that he would be watching him and holding him and just making sure that he was okay, even though I knew that at that point I mean he wouldn't need anything anymore, but it would just felt so sweet with this
yeah,
man, this stranger. I'd never met him before, but it was so sweet that this stranger was reassuring me that he was going to take good care of my little baby.
yeah,
And sure enough, at the viewing, when we got to see his little body before his funeral day, we got to see him, and he just looked so peaceful. He just looked,
yeah,
yeah, he was just, it just looked like he was sleeping. And I saw the groundskeeper again, and he told me, he was like, I promised you that I would take good care of your little baby, and he just gave me a hug, and it was just so sweet. I'll never forget him. I don't know his name,
JJ.
but
His name is JJ. Yeah,
AJ, oh,
yeah,
yes, he
yeah,
was so sweet, and I'll never forget that. And that was just so sweet and so special, that he could like reassure me that he knew that that was something I was worried about.
yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. Brianda, I know that you had obviously some advance warning of this. It sounds like even before Sammy was born, you were notified that something was wrong. It sounds like genetically, he had some kind of a genetic
Yes,
condition. And I want to talk a little bit about that experience for you in what's termed as anticipatory grief, right?
yes.
Knowing that a loss was coming. Can you speak to how you learned that there would be a loss coming and what that experience of grief was like?
So we found out that there was something wrong with Sammy at my anatomy scan.
Okay.
So we went, and up to this point, I mean, everything felt normal. I had a very normal pregnancy. I didn't have too many symptoms. I felt pretty good health wise. Um, so I wasn't expecting anything. So we went, and they were doing the anatomy scan, and I remember the tech. She was very quiet in the beginning. Me and my husband were just joking around, just asking her questions, like just to make sure everything was fine. And text, they can't tell you anything.
Yeah.
But I noticed there was a shift. She started talking a lot
Mm,
to us, like all of a sudden. And I'm not a medical professional, so I when she was doing ultrasound, I couldn't see anything.
mm. No. How
I
far along were you at this point?
I was 30 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was, yeah, pretty far in my pregnancy already.
Yeah.
And um then I remember yeah, she stepped out after she became very chatty, and then the doctor came in, and I remember she broke down his symptoms to us um from the the least problem to the biggest
Uh,
issue.
yeah.
So she starts out telling us that Sammy had a cleft lip. And we were like, okay, no problem. We know that those can be fixed. That he could have surgery. And she told us that he also had a cleft palate, which again, we're like, okay, we know that those can be fixed by surgical issues that we can fix later. And then she mentioned that he had a heart murmur, which I wasn't worried about because my daughter also had a heart murmur, and I knew that those close on their own. So I was
Yeah.
like, okay, to this point, we're like, okay, these are all issues we can fix later. They're not too worrisome. And then she mentioned to us about his brain, and that she said it could she said that we were gonna need an MRI scan of him done, but she said that from what they could tell on the ultrasound, that it was um, hold on, Ellie, not right now, that it was one of the more severe cases with his brain.
Mm,
So there are several different cases of his condition. It was called allobar holopresencephaly, and it's basically where his brain didn't fully separate in the womb. So a brain, it has a line down the middle. Well,
yeah.
pretty much that his brain did not do that. It just stayed fused together,
Mm,
and yes, it was just going to cause several issues, just depending how bad the fusion was.
okay.
Um, we did get the MRI done, and it did reveal that he did have a more severe case, and that these babies, they don't live very long. They were saying that he may not even be born alive. He
Mm,
could be a stillborn baby, and it was a lot to process. But we believe that God has a plan for every child, every baby. And I was already 30 weeks, and so I mean, legally, even if I wanted to, there's nothing I could do at that point. I was too far along. So yes, and so we just prepared, and we're like, okay, well, we're gonna love him for however long we have him.
yeah.
And then the day he was gonna be born came, and we were so scared. Oh my gosh, we were so scared for that day because we just didn't know what would happen.
Yeah.
And Sammy was actually born on my husband's birthday, so that will always be special. He was
Oh,
born on the same day as my husband. Yeah,
and
and
how was the birth? What was the birth like?
um, so I've had two C-sections, so Sammy was a C-section as well. But it was a little exciting because I was just so scared to go in and have a C-section, and so I just kept telling the doctors that I wanted to wait
Mm,
because of his condition, they wanted me to have a C-section earlier. So like at 36 or 37 weeks, they
mm,
wanted me to go ahead and have him. But I was just so worried because he was so small. And
yeah.
so they were telling me that his weight, he was only weighing I think 3.5 pounds if I
Yeah.
would have had him at 36 weeks. And so just my mommy heart was like, no, if this is where he's safe. He has everything he needs. He doesn't need anything extra so long as he's inside my womb. So
Yeah.
I told the doctors, I was like, he just needs more time. I want to give him as much time as I can to where he's safe and where he doesn't need anything. And so
Yeah.
I just kept him in my womb, and we were just waiting on God's timing. And the day that he was born, it was actually so he was born July 2nd.
Oh,
July 1st, I went in to the doctor. I was 41 weeks already, and I was getting impatient, honestly. But I just kept waiting.
yeah.
I was 41 weeks, and I went in, and they were just gonna check to see if I was dilated at all.
Yeah.
And my water broke actually while I was at the clinic,
Oh, wow.
and it actually felt like perfect timing because so I live in Tulsa, and the hospital where Samuel was born is in Oklahoma City, so it was an hour and a half drive
Yeah.
over there. And so it just felt like perfect timing because I was already in Oklahoma City, and the hospital was connected to the clinic. And so they just wheelchaired me upstairs, and we just waited for a room. And then we were just waiting to see if Sammy would come on his own since my water had already broken. But we waited through the night and the next morning, and he just because he was so small, he wasn't putting enough pressure on. I don't know the medical word. Just wasn't putting
On
enough
the
pressure.
cervix, and it wasn't opening the birth canal, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So pretty much he wasn't opening the birth canal. And so then they told me, no, we're gonna have to do a C-section. But
Yeah.
it still felt special because normally they only allow one person to go back with you, but because of his condition, they knew that he may not live very long. They let my mom come too, and so I was able to have my husband and my mom in the room with me when Sammy was born.
Wow.
Yeah, so
And
that
he
just
was
felt
born alive, and did you get a chance to hold him when you
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It took me a moment, when he was born, like, because when I actually saw him, like in all his little defects, he obviously he had the cleft lip, but just something I just didn't even think about too much was that the doctor had told us that because his brain hadn't separated that way, that the middle of his face didn't form very well either. So that meant his nose didn't fully form. And so first time I saw Sammy, it did take me a moment, to see him and realize that he didn't have a nose. And so
Wow.
it just took me a moment to fully grasp, everything that was going on. But it was my husband, I remember, who was trying to point out to me, to calm me down, so I wasn't scared. Because when Sammy was born, he was born wiggling his tongue, like he would like. So my husband was like, he was like, look how cute he is. Look
Yeah.
him blowing bubbles and like moving his little tongue at us.
I love that. He saw him right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then I remember when my kids, when, oh man, it was funny when my 7-year-old, when he first saw him, he didn't say anything, but then a little bit later he tells me, he was like, Mommy, he's like, when I first saw Sammy, he was like, I thought he looked like an alien. He's like, but now that I'm used to him, he's like, I think he's so cute. And I'm like, oh, kids are just so honest.
I love that.
Yeah.
So sweet.
Versus my daughter, she just thought he was the cutest thing she'd ever seen, she was like, Mommy, she's like, baby brother is so cutie. He's so cutie.
Oh, sweet. So you got to bring him home and you got to have togetherness as a family.
Yeah.
How has it been going forward from that in terms of what's it like in your home there for you and your husband and your 2 children, and obviously the Sammy-sized hole in your heart? How do you go forward? How do you remember and discuss and process? And I just find my experience when our daughter passed away, I felt like I always say my husband and I were banished to separate grief islands. We handled it really differently. My experience, grief is a place we go alone. As much as everyone wants to say you're not alone in this, you really are. You really are alone in your grief. People around you who love you are supporting in the ways that they can. But I don't think anyone can go with us into that inner sanctum of grief. Like
Yeah.
only you in all the world is Sammy's mom. And for your husband, only he in all the world is Sammy's dad. And that's unique. There's no one else who can be in that same place. I'm curious if that resonates in your experience too, and what it's been like for you navigating it since then.
Yeah. So, since Sammy's passing, um, the hospice, they came immediately after he passed, and they just took all of his medical equipment away, like the monitors, his feeding tube
Mhm.
or feeding pump. And I was happy because, I was like, oh, get those out of here. I don't, the house was almost starting to feel more like a doctor's office with all the medical equipment.
Sure.
But all of the pieces, but I didn't want to erase Sammy. That's what it felt like at the same time, with getting rid of all the medical equipment. It almost felt like we were erasing Sammy.
Yeah.
So there was a few things that I left exactly where they were, and I refuse to move them or touch them at all.
Yeah.
Like Sammy's car seat is in the same spot it's been since the last time we've used it.
Yeah.
and I've gone through Sammy's clothes, and there was a few items that he just never used,
Yeah.
that I gave to my sister who also has a baby. He's 2 months younger than Sammy was,
Oh, wow.
and so I gave a few items to him, just items that Sammy had never used, but everything that Sammy actually was able to wear, I kept those. Even
Yeah.
though I could have passed them on, I was like, no,
Yeah.
I need to keep these. These were my babies. I need to see them.
Yeah.
And just like his his bathtub, I don't know, it was even before he passed, it was getting kind of gross. It was getting like some weird stains on it. And
Yeah.
I've thought about throwing it away a few times, but every time I do, I look at it and you can still see his hairs
Yeah.
on the padding. And I can't. I'm like, that's my baby.
Yeah.
And his bassinet, I still have it right beside my bed, and I refuse to move it. And in his bassinet, we like laid out the last outfit that he wore. I washed it because it was looking kind of gross,
Yeah.
but but we have it laid out exactly how he wore it. His little shirt, his pants, his socks, and the
Oh,
blanket he was using the day he passed. And I just have them in his bassinet, and I just look at it. And then we actually had Sammy cremated,
yeah.
and then we had a portion of his remains like put into a little teddy bear,
Oh,
and I have that teddy bear in the bassinet too, and so it's right there next to me.
yeah.
So every morning I wake up and I can see, you
Yeah.
know, little little reminders of my Sammy, and then just me and the kids. We talk about Sammy all the time because I'm
Yeah.
so scared that my daughter will forget.
Yeah.
She's only 2, she's about to be 3, but she's so young, and I don't want her to forget her baby brother. And so we talk about him all the time. We're like, oh, your baby brother Sammy. We say our nightly prayers, and we're like, oh, we're so thankful for Sammy,
Oh.
and we send kisses up to Sammy all the time. Like my daughter, she'll tell me, she'll say, "Mommy, I miss Sammy,"
Oh.
and we'll just send kisses up to heaven. We'll a
Yeah.
quick kiss up to him. The kids are saying right now that they miss Sammy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, yeah. But something that we like to do is we very much believe in the Lord, and we believe in heaven, like
Yeah.
no doubt.
Yeah.
And so something that I like to do with my son is that we like to imagine what Sammy's doing in heaven. You
Yeah.
know, right now it's January, so he would be 6 months old now, and so we like to imagine that now Sammy is sitting up now.
Yeah.
He's sitting up at the feet of Jesus, and he listens to the angels sing, and and my son likes to imagine because we have these little stuffed animals in Sammy's car seat. So we have a little teddy bear and a little lion cub just
Yeah.
sitting in his seat. And my son, Leo, he likes to imagine that Sammy is in heaven playing with a real baby bear and a real
Yeah.
baby lion,
Yeah.
and that they're his friends. And
Yeah.
it just helps us. I think I think that's helped us a lot is just imagining my son in heaven, and just remembering that he's happy where he's at, and
Yeah.
that because he's happy it gives us permission to have moments of joy, because
Yeah.
that's something I struggled with too. Is like I was like, I don't know, my son would do something silly and like I would laugh, and I'd feel so guilty. Like
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to laugh. Like, I'm grieving. Like my son is gone. I'm not allowed to laugh. I can't have a good moment right now.
Yeah.
And it was my husband who told me, he was like, "No, honey, like it's like you need to remember that Sammy's not in pain anymore, but Sammy is happy and Sammy is smiling." And he's like, and if you were to ask him Like I know that Sammy would say that he wants us to be happy too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's just given us permission to just like have small moments, where we still laugh,
Yeah.
where we still have a good time. And I don't know, just now, I mean, even when Sammy was born, we knew that time was so precious, like because we didn't know how long we would have with Sammy.
Yeah.
And instead of living every day like, oh, like could this be the day that he dies? Like we decided to just live every day,
Yeah.
as if it was last. So we
And then
cherish
you
every
had
moment.
4 months of sweet life together and
Yes.
doing the ordinary things, which is so amazing.
Yes. Like he went to my son plays soccer, so he went to soccer games with
Yeah.
Big Brother. We went to birthday parties, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and just yeah, there was just so many moments that we tried to make as normal as possible. And I'm so happy that we have those memories.
Yeah.
Ali, go sit down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only thing that I still regret is that I wish I had more pictures. I
I was
wish
gonna
I
ask
would have
about
taken more
photos.
pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have some?
I do, yeah, but I'm just like, "Ugh, I wish I had more." That's my biggest regret.
Yeah. 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 Well, we also did not have many photos of our daughter, but the ones we do, we had them printed on canvases and we have them hung around the house. And I agree, it helps a lot. My son never met his sister, but like he knows of her and we talk about her all the time. And I do think the visualization of wonder what Simone's doing right now, it does help us to stay connected. And I believe there's a truth in that. My turning point after my daughter passed, I had a dream one night, but it didn't feel like a dream, where she was a place that I didn't know, but as happens in dreams, it was like it was our house and she was in her crib. And just like you said, she was like the size she would have been at that point. And she got these goofy sunglasses that somebody had gifted at the baby shower, and she was wearing them, and they were, like, sliding down her nose, and she was being very silly, and there was another child there with her too, and I sensed that, like, that child was a child someone else had lost, an older child, but they
Okay.
obviously had, like, this little kinship and this kind of, like, unspoken connection, and in the dream, I picked her up, and, she, like, kissed my neck the way they do when they're little like that, and, it was that after that dream, I was like, I don't know, the details of where she is or what that's like, but I was very assured that like her spirit was fully alive and at peace. And it allowed me to go forward because she didn't feel dead to me anymore, right?
Yeah,
She's not here with us, but I felt that she was somewhere safe and
yeah,
loved, and that helped a lot. That helped a lot with the going forward. I'm curious, Brianda, I so appreciate everything you've shared with this, and, for those who are listening, I think particularly when it comes to the death of a child, I know after our daughter died, people didn't know what to do, like, some people were, like, getting a babysitter and leaving their kids at home because they thought maybe if we saw kids, it would be too much, and there was a lot of silence and people just didn't know what to say. And I'm curious what your experience was, more broadly, socially around this loss, what it was like to experience the people you love experiencing you and your grief after this loss. And if there was anything that you experienced that just felt wise and resonant and helpful, or if there was something that probably well intended did not land well, just to give insights for people who are loving someone in the aftermath of
yeah.
losing a baby.
I just felt like so many people told me that they wish they could take my pain from me.
Mm,
And and I'm just like, I don't need you to take the pain from me. This is something that, I have to carry. I loved him and it hurts that he's gone. And so I don't want anyone to take the pain from me, but I'm like, I just want them to listen. That's been my biggest thing. It's like all the people who just sit with me and just let me cry. Because so many people, they're trying to be cautious, they don't want to make me cry, they try to be sensitive. And I'm like, no, but I want to talk about Sam,
Yes,
like I'm really grateful for this grief session because I can talk about Sammy and I can cry, but it makes me happy just being able to talk about him. And
yes,
that's been my biggest thing that I've told so many people. I'm like, I don't need you to take the pain from me. I'm like, I just need you to sit here with me through the pain. Just sit here with me while I cry. It's okay. Let me cry. It feels good to cry. It feels good to talk about Sammy. And
yeah,
that's been my biggest takeaway. You know, um, Shortly after Sammy died, there was a friend of mine who also lost her son, but her situation was much different. He actually died in a car accident, and he was much older than Sammy was, and so I was still able to relate to her because I also lost a son,
yeah,
and but I knew what to do.
yeah,
I knew not to try to take her pain away from her. I just created a safe space for her to cry and grieve, and I was just there for her, and I just listened to her cry and yell and be upset if she needed to, and then she calmed down and she continued to cry, just upset that and, just upset that that happened and that it was unfair.
of course.
And it feels like all death is unfair, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's just been my biggest takeaway is just, not to try to take the pain away, just sit there with the person while they're in pain. So I feel like that's been the biggest thing that helps.
yeah. Because I think the pain of grief is the love that we have
Yeah,
for that person. That's why you can't take it, right? It's the love transfers into the grief, which
yeah,
is why it is so painful, is because of the intensity of love and caring that is there. But we can't take that, or
yeah,
we take away that love. I do think over time it can transmute into something else, but that takes time and movement. And yeah, I felt that way too. People were afraid of reminding me of my daughter, and I was like, there's no, it's not possible because I don't
yeah.
forget. Like I want to say her name. I want to hear her name on your lips too, right?
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Like I love looking at our insurance cards because it still says his name on it. It's
Yes.
like it's like one of the only places that still says it, and I love it so much.
Yes.
Even though I know that, eventually we will get new insurance cards and his name won't be on there anymore. But
Yeah,
I'll still keep the old ones just because it still says his name. And
that's right.
shh, guys, and it's one of the only places where I can still see the five of us. Right now it just feels so strange because even though we were a family of four before Sammy was born, Sammy like after like now it just feels weird. I don't want to be regarded as a family of four,
No,
and
you're not. You're a family of five. Yeah.
yes, and
Forever.
I love it because when I go around strangers, I got my nails done recently. And the nail tech, she's just making small talk. She's like, oh, like, how many kids do you have? And, she doesn't know. And so I can just speak about Sammy. I'm like, oh, I have three. I have I still talk about him as if he were still here. I'm like, oh, I have a 6-month-old baby,
Yeah.
and she has no idea. And so she'll just go along with it, like, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that with strangers, who don't know what I've been through, I can still talk about Sammy as if he were here.
Yeah. 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 That feels really good, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also that particular question, "Oh, how many kids do you have?" And I would
Yeah,
pause, and depending on the circumstances, sometimes I would say 1 or sometimes I would say 2, depending because I'd say 2 and they'd say, "Oh, how old are they?" Right? And then I would have to say that my daughter passed away, and then people would get, whatever. But as time has passed, and maybe as my heart heals somewhat, I almost always just answer, I have 2. I have 2 children, a son and a
yeah,
daughter, and then they say, "Oh, your daughter's name," I'll tell, her name is Simone, and, "Oh, how old is she?" And I say, "Well, she would be 10 this year, but she passed away,"
yeah,
and then move on, right? But, like, I don't wanna deny the existence because it hurt me every
yes,
time.
yes. I feel the same way. I don't want to say that I just have two because I'm like, no, I have three.
Yes,
I have three.
that's right.
I'm like, I have his birth certificate. He was here. He
Yeah,
was here. I held him. He was here.
yeah, yeah,
I have three.
that's right. Yeah, yes. That's why in the intro, I wanted to introduce you as a mother of 3 because you are. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Brianda, thank you so much for being here on the show and telling your story. Is there um, is there anything else that's just kind of pressing to be spoken before we sign off here today?
You know, I don't regret anything that happened.
Yeah.
I, even if we would have gone back in time and we would have found out sooner about Sammy, I think I would have still let things play out the way they did because
Yeah.
I got to meet him, got
Yeah.
to meet him and know him.
Yeah.
And I have his little handprints and
Yeah.
footprints, and
Abs
those will forever be special. I got to see him. He never smiled while he was awake, but I saw him smile in his sleep,
Oh,
and so
oh,
I'll forever have that. I got to see him smile.
yeah. Oh,
I saw him with his eyes open. I saw him look at me.
oh,
Those moments will forever be so special to me,
that's
even though it hurts that he's not here anymore. I don't regret having him. You know, he was here. I know there's meaning and there's purpose to his life. I look at life differently now,
yeah.
but I have no regrets. Even though it's painful now, like I love him and I don't regret loving him, and
Yeah.
I will forever love him.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that I got to have him for 4 months.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Absolutely. You said that it forever changed the way you see life. And I'm curious if you could say a little bit more about the ways in which it changed things for you.
His life is so precious. I used to be one of those moms who would be on my phone all the time, like just scrolling through social media. But with Sammy, it's like I never wanted to waste a moment, you know?
Yeah.
Like I would catch myself on my phone and I would immediately put it down and I would just go to pick him up and
Yeah.
I would just hold him, and then sometimes I would take little videos or little pictures of him, because I wanted to remember these moments and I wanted to remember him in those moments. And I love those videos and those pictures. I
Yeah.
can go back and I can just relive them a little bit. It just reminds me now, to always be present,
Yeah.
especially with my older two, my 7-year-old and my 3-year-old. I'm like, they are so much more precious to me now. I'm like, I cannot go back to being a mom who was just on her phone all the time or who just wanted to watch TV. Like I find myself wanting to play with them more. I want to make more family memories with them, but always include Sammy somehow, like
Yes.
um we took uh we took my kids to take family pictures with all the cousins,
Yes.
and we took the teddy bear with Sammy's remains, and we included them in the pictures, to include him.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, I love that.
yes.
I
But
love it.
it's just, life is so precious. Like you can't take it for granted.
No. No. Even even with children, right? I think we tend to think that nothing happens to children, but obviously you and I
Yeah,
both know this isn't the case. And so truly, we have to cherish every moment
yeah,
regardless. Yeah.
yeah, because they're so precious, you know, like seeing their smiles, their laughs. It's so sweet. It's so precious.
Yeah. Yeah. Brianda, I so admire just your grace and your presence through this. And thank you so much for sharing. It was really wonderful to have you on the show.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for this, Roxy. I really appreciate being able to talk about Sammy like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.